Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and yep, Kanye West album bomb, and this, it's Billboard BREAKDOwn.
I don't remember.
I would go broke in a week or less if I bet on the good taste of the American public. I'm sure there's an option on one of your prediction markets about where songs fall out on Billboard, right? Turns out with about 5 minutes of research, this actually exists, predominantly on Kalshi, and I'm terrified by the fact that I could probably make solid money on it, except for the fact that those kinds of prediction markets are actually banned in Canada, and for damn good reason. Thank every higher power for it. Anyway, my larger point circles around the fact that, of course, we got the Kanye West album bomb for Bully, which I didn't mention as a possibility of last week, and I'm certainly not reviewing, I think based off of hope on my part. But it's also big enough that this week will be considerably more manageable thanks to my long-existing album bomb rules, because boy, I am prepared for this. But before we get there, we got our top 10, where Choosing Texas by Ella Langley went right back up to number 1. Yes, it was a margins win, but I don't want to hear from anyone that it's not earned it. The radio is strong, if slipping. She's still selling really damn well, and she's dominant on streaming. This is a legitimate hit by every metric, and it's really something to watch the BTS army get so incensed about it as Swim predictably slid back to number 2. I saw this would be number 1 except for the radio, but the only reason it's as competitive as it is, it's the bulk buying on sales approach, because this is not winning on the streaming numbers. And we're not gonna do the whinging about the radio against Choosing Texas of all things, because of the historical hurdles it took for any country act, let alone a woman in country, to scale the charts to number 1 in this way while dealing with systemic radio issues that eclipses BTS's number 1 by rights attitude when it comes to chart dominance, especially given how lousy Swim is. Anyway, once again, the person I'm feeling most bad for is Olivia Dean with Man I Need. The streaming's absolutely there, but the radio slipped into free fall. I don't see her making the run much beyond number 3, certainly not to the top. And it's even more pronounced for I Just Might by Bruno Mars at number 4, which has better sales but much weaker streaming and effectively has already reached the radio peak. Then we got Ordinary by Alex Warren just refusing to go away at number 5. The fact that its streaming and radio are so stable with sales gains, that's what's keeping it around, but it might run into a challenger from our second Olivia Dean song with So Easy to Fall in Love up to number 6. The radio push is closing the margins, the sales are up. This could be a real winner if it keeps up momentum or gets any tangible streaming. Hell, it leapfrogged Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters down to number 7. Call this a case of sales gains not outweighing losses on streaming of the radio. And that takes us to Stateside by Pink Pantheress featuring Zara Larsson at number 8. I'll give them credit for trying to go for a genuine radio push. As the streaming's holding up, it's gonna be a question if it can get there fast enough in order to cover some of those margins. But in the meantime, it's Over, the Fate of Ophelia by Taylor Swift at number 9, more stable than you would expect but still steadily losing, and Folded by Kehlani at number 10, which saw some really pronounced radio growth this week. I did not expect any sort of second win there, so that's kind of interesting. But on the flip side, we got our losers and dropouts, and we actually have some really big ones in the latter group. Multiple songs that have clinched their year-end list spots for 2026. Tit for Tat by Tate McRae, Amen by Shabuzi and Jelly Roll, and Back to Friends by Somber. And not for nothing, we also got rid of that god-awful cover of Travelin' Soldier by Cody Johnson and his band, and FDO by Pooh Shiesty. It's gonna fall well short of any year-end list. I wonder if Pooh Shiesty will see a rebound given his antics with Gucci Mane the past week. I'm not even gonna touch on that mess. Sadly, we also lost Say Why by Zach Bryan earlier than I hoped. Let's hope Canada actually gives the song a proper run, but that's relevant when we get to our losers, and for Zach Bryan, Plastic Cigarette fell all the way to 100. From there, it's really the story of failing album bombs. Let's start with BTS. Body to Body at 42, Hooligan at 64, Normal at 73, Faya at 74, 2.0 at 75, Aliens at 84, Like Animals at 90, They Don't Know About Us at 94, and Merry Go Round at 96. Not to be outdone, we've got some Harry Styles losses too, with Aperture down to 58, Coming Up Roses at 79, and Taste Back at 99, and the rest are kind of scattered. Looks like Sienna Spiro cannot sustain much traction as The Visitor hit 80, but we also got Zoo by Shakira at 91, Who Knows by Daniel Caesar at 93, and Mrs. Trendsetter by Lil Baby at 95. But now for our returns and gains. Well, there were no returns this week, and the gains feel pretty paltry, as you'd expect in an album bomb week, but not exactly promising if the biggest gain is Elizabeth Taylor by Taylor Swift up to 35, because the radio push is now in full swing. Then we got our country entries. I Ain't Coming Back by Morgan Wallen featuring Post Malone at 56. Yes, it's somehow still around. Blame Nashville radio. And Time's Tickin' by Justin Moore at 63. The rest, I'm shocked we just let the baby become a thing again with Pop Dat Thing at 31. But then there's Earrings by Malcolm Todd at 65 and Freaking Out by Dexter and the Moonrocks up off the viral debut to 77. I know too well to expect a rock revival in the mainstream in 2026, but it is interesting, no doubt about it. But of course, we are in large album bomb territory for Kanye West. Or Ye, that's how he's being credited on Billboard. And I know what some of you are expecting given 2024 and how I slagged off everything that he was pushing, well, because of all the fashy nonsense. I don't even have to play you a montage, you already know what he said, but he also paid for that full-page apology in the New York Times. What he did not apologize for amidst defending Diddy was his own admissions of domestic violence alongside the allegations. I've stopped caring for what level of trolling or irony he's operating on. If he wants to stir up provocation, I'm gonna give him what he wants. I'll take him at his word. It seems like plenty of Americans are just fine with that. It's very telling how many people are just casually ignoring how he has treated women for some time now. Fortunately, again, large album bomb territory, which outside of the best or worst or the top 20, I barely have to acknowledge Ye's even here. And the majority of these songs are so fragmented, badly mixed, and low energy, they're barely even worth caring about anyway. So with that in mind, Circles at 87, Beauty and the Beast at 85, White Lines with Andre Troutman at 82, Last Breath with Pesa Pluma at 81, Dude, Waited to Live down to my worst possible impressions of you, Sisters and Brothers at 67, Highs and Lows at 62, the title track with CeeLo Green at 61, probably the best song that charted from that project because it kind of owns a lot of its grotesque ugliness. I see the appeal. Mama's Favorite at 59, Preacher Man at 57, It's a Must at 51, Whatever Works at 49, Punch Drunk at 44, King at 40, and All the Love featuring Andre Troutman at 27. Feel obligated to mention the original titles of that last song were Reich and Gas Chambers, if you're about to buy that deep into the whole rebrand here. Now, on to a thankfully more brisk week of new arrivals, starting with number 98, Silent Treatment by Freya Sky.
Silent treatment, the least you could have done was give me a reason. And I can't ignore the way I hate you for leaving. Too much free time staring up at the ceiling.
I'll be honest, when I see a new Disney starlet break through, and then I see that she signed to Hollywood Records in the year of 2026, I don't have a lot of faith the song's gonna be that good, but here we go. Freya Sky's out of the UK. This is off her first EP. The song was first released in late 2025. Fortunately, it's not one of the songs with a big co-write from Julia Michaels, and alright, look, there's a part of me that immediately hears the brittle acoustics, the glossy synth pulse, and the meticulous vocal pattern and think, well, looks like Gracie Abrams finally has some competition for nakedly ripping off Taylor Swift, but there might be a little bit more here to like. Similar to a parallel I made when Olivia Rodrigo first broke out. For one, there are more rough edges from Sky in the vocal mix, as she's a little bit more willing to belt, and she's got a good voice. The limited budget is definitely showing, but she's willing to try a little harder, and the songwriting fundamentals are actually pretty solid to build up the frustration of getting dumped or ghosted by this dude, who then tries to slip back into her life as if it was no big deal. That's a real asshole thing to do, and she's calling it out. So, I'm not going to say it's an obvious winner, but it is a pretty decent pop song. I'll keep my eye on Freya Sky going forward. I think this is good stuff. Number 97, Griddle by Yeet and Don Toliver.
Oh, I'm in love with the bitch. No more sand on the bitch out the roof.
It's not a good sign when I was wishing to hear more from Yeet than Kanye West, but here we are, with the only track that broke through this week coming with Don Toliver, who is having a big 2026 in spite of limited personality, or limited quality. And look, with rock bottom expectations, I was trying to find things in the song that I kinda liked, amidst Benny X swamping up the mix with his bass and the uneven trap crunch. I kinda like the descending, warbling, watery synths, serving as a better contrast to the grinding organ. It's not a bad contrast to Yeet sounding so guttural in his spitting hedonism, where parts of his tone almost reminded me of DaBaby, and that's kind of a compliment if you squint at it. Unfortunately, it's rooted in the sentiment of, I'ma serve you little bitch, I'm gonna call you Mick Griddle. Look, even if you think the song is so stupid to the point of hilarity, and that's kind of the point, it's not like Don Toliver has anything to really say to augment it, or that the verse previously didn't rely on a weak Lizzo fat joke. I mean, I do appreciate Yeet is building more unique vocal personality away from his Travis Scott imitation, and there are things in the mix that I like, just not enough to recommend. Number 72, I Can't Wait by Ye. So if you've heard anything about Bully at all, it's probably that Kanye has gotten back to a lot of his vintage sample flips, that he still has the ear to go back and find something that would feel special, try to recontextualize it, get back to some of that chipmunk soul, a sound that I've always been considerably cooler on than a lot of folks, but that's not the issue here. In fact, the vocal sample's actually shifted down, and it's of You Can't Hurry Love by the Carpenters. First off, and I'm gonna be as polite as possible, go fuck yourself, you lazy hack. How dare you desecrate Karen Carpenter's grave with this dog shit flip, as the organ isn't even on key amidst the creaking jingle and the moaning guitar, and that's before Ye drops lines like, she eaten up the town, she was designed for it. She died of anorexia, you weird creep. Then we got the second verse where he half-heartedly goes off against the system, which he's figured out, and it's dividing us, whereas he just wants to focus on the love. The problem is I neither believe nor care about his problems or what he thinks about ours. If he's worked the system out, why is he still complaining about it? Yeah, it's the worst song on the goddamn album. If it's not vapid, it's fucking inexcusable. It's not that I can't wait for this, I refuse to. Number 69, Younger You by Miley Cyrus.
We used to be so happy just because I know you had to go eventually, but don't forget about me. Don't forget about me.
This is where a generation gap's gonna show, because I didn't watch Hannah Montana just after my time. I was aware of it, was not a fan, and this is coming from somebody who actually liked more than a few Miley Cyrus songs in the 2000s, not just the 2010s. See You Again still goes off. I stand by that. Now, this is apparently a song celebrating the 20th anniversary of Hannah Montana, so right from the jump, I can't say I've got the same emotional connection to it, and after listening, I feel like to get the most out of it, you kind of need that connection. For one, the vocal mix is painfully tinny and compressed, alongside the gentle acoustics and the airy pop country instrumentation. The Monsters and Strangers should have worn out their welcome as producers so long ago. All of this support a song from her younger self to now that's about staying in touch with her roots and her family, and while she would eventually grow up and move on, not fully lose some of that innocence. And you know, that's not a bad thing, especially if you know how estranged Miley's been from her family the past couple of years. I get where there would be a twinge of resonance and emotionality, just not exactly strong in the execution. I don't know, wasn't for me, just not at this point. And finally, number 21, Father by Ye and Travis Scott.
Still in a leopard skin and check me out then check me in. See this coat nigga, bye to my old self. Wake up to the new me. I used to be a world star. Now I'm making Newsweek.
I mean, I'm not surprised that Travis Scott enabled the highest charting song from Bully, but sure as hell is not an endorsement. When the rhymes aren't the same empty flexing and brand names, they're asinine. I'm back to life like an EpiPen, and the only thing that I can hope to like is that Johnny Frierson gospel sample that opens up the track. Incidentally, this is where I might as well speak to the AI allegations that are all over this album, where apparently there were versions of multiple songs that featured AI vocal tracks that were later replaced in post, and Kanye said that, well, he did use AI, it was for splitting the stems from his samples, which for me falls into a bit of a gray area as a use case. On the other hand, the mixing's often so bad across the album, I wouldn't be surprised if there were AI vocals or samples or artifacting that was just left in the mix. And I'm not in a hurry to buy into the good word of Kanye West and Milo Yiannopoulos. Anyway, we lose the gospel pretty quick for this distended fart of a metallic synth and the skittering drums that pulse over the guitar with a lo-fi click and a truly shoddy vocal mix that doesn't even match Travis Scott's verse. This is gonna be the possible hit from this album. I've seen empty tin cans with more personality and shine than junk like this. I know Kanye West fans will not buy me saying that this guy has not been truly great or even that good in over a decade, but if you go back to what he previously made, compare it to this is not Graduation, this is not 808s, it's not My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Looks like the father needs to stretch his hands a hell of a lot further. And you know what? That's the week. I technically would only have to give a worst and not dishonorable mention, but Ye's getting both, with I Can't Wait being among one of the worst songs I've heard in 2026, and Father with Travis Scott just being crap. Best of the week, because I really cannot find an honorable mention here. I'm not giving it to Bully. Silent Treatment by Freya Sky. She's got talent. I hope that she has some continuity. Next week, maybe some Fallout proper, we'll see. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next.